Today we'll be revisiting Elden Ring 1 year later. Before we get into the video and before we do anything, I apologize for how crappy I sound and look, and it honestly hurts to smile right now. My allergies have been absolutely whooping me. But anyway, we're about to start up Journey 5. I'm not going to be doing like a whole nother playthrough or like a whole nother mini-series or anything like that. I just figured the last time that we made a video on this game was when I finished Journey 4, and I really don't have anything else to do in this playthrough, so we'll just start up a new one. I figured since it's the 1 year anniversary, it's only fitting that we go in for that fresh, new game Elden Ring experience. I'm sorry if I look weird anytime that I try to smile in this video. Like, every time that I smile, I have to keep it controlled because, like, I don't know if you can see, like, my upper lip and, like, this, I don't know what this is called right here in between the nose and the upper lip where, like, your mustache is at. It is so chapped and it hurts so freaking bad right now. It's not even funny. Anyway, in this video, I really don't have any plans or any goals. We're just gonna be following the main path, defeating some of the bosses, and I'll just kind of be talking, giving some of my thoughts on Elden Ring. If anybody's curious as to what my stats or build is, well, you can just kind of pause and look at all the stuff that I'm rocking right here, and then if you want to look at my stats, and there you go. I know it isn't the most optimized build, but I'm doing my best. Ow. It doesn't matter how terrible I feel. I would not miss making this video for the world. Now, obviously, anybody that knows me knows I didn't even get into From Software games until this last October when I played Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 for the first time. I played all of those games back to back within the span of like 2 months. That was one heck of an adventure, and then after that, we dived into Bloodborne, and I did like, I don't know, 2 or 3 episodes on that, and then I gave up on it for a while. I was like, this game isn't for me, and then in my free time, I ended up beating Demon Souls for the first time, which was an absolutely amazing game. I have yet to play Sekiro, and then in December, around the time that this game was winning Game of the Year and all that, is when I did my original playthrough, and then we proceeded to do like 40 or 50 episodes of this game, and we went through the game like 4 different times. We defeated every unique boss in the game, we got the Platinum Trophy, like I did everything. And fun fact, this was actually my first Platinum Trophy ever. I just feel like that's so cool, being able to say that a From Software game was my first Platinum. I know Elden Ring is one of the easier Platinum Trophies out of the From Software catalog, but that's no easy feat still. Y'all know me when it comes to videos like this, when I'm trying to give like mini reviews, I never write anything down beforehand, I just kind of turn the camera on and start rambling. However, I do have a couple different things in mind that I wanted to touch on in this video. Now granted, like I said, I feel terrible right now and I got the whole mental fog going, so there's a lot that I'm gonna miss out on that I wanted to talk about originally. But first things first, before we do that, let's do the classic thing, just open the door. Oh my gosh. I've beaten this game so many times, and still stepping out here for the first time, it's a feeling that it hasn't been matched by any other open world game. At least not in recent memory. Like Elden Ring, the initial reveal of the world, it's honestly on the same tier as something like Fallout. You know, in Fallout, when you first step outside of the bunker, you see the world for the first time. Elden Ring is definitely up there as one of my favorite reveals in terms of like stepping out into the world for the first time, because it's just so massive. Like, look at this map, man. I remember when I played the game for the first time and I was in Limgrave, I was like, oh, you know, this is a decent sized open world. Then I found Caelid, and I was like, oh, okay, so there's more to this game. And then I got to Liurnia of the Lakes, I was like, oh, there's even more to this game. And then my subscribers told me about the Weeping Peninsula, and I was like, oh, this game just keeps going. And then I went up to the Altus Plateau, and I said, I must be close to the end of the game, right? And then I found the mountaintops of the Giants, and I said, there must not be any more. And then unfortunately I came across the Consecrated Snowfields, and I wish I could never do that again. And then I did the Volcano Manor quest, and I was like, okay, this is a little ridiculous. We're at the point of it being like 3 games in 1, and then what do you know, I discovered the Haligtree. Beyond that, I was pretty sure, like, okay, this has to be the map. There's nothing more, right? And I don't think it's gonna let me click it in to show you guys the underground, because I'm not at that point of the game yet, but then you click the stick in, and there's like 5 areas underground. Oh, I'm sorry, did I also forget to mention Farum Azula over here? Needless to say, this game is absolutely massive. However, whereas most open world games, that size just would have been way too much, and there would have been like a bunch of dead and empty lifeless space, somehow they managed to make almost every inch of this map serve some kind of purpose. And for that, you can do nothing but commend and respect From Software for that. You may be wondering, Grotesque, why do you say almost every inch of the map? And I say almost because Consecrated Snowfield exists, and this serves absolutely no purpose. This whole place is just wasted space. The only thing here that serves any kind of purpose at all is Ordino, but even then, that's really just so you can get from here up to the Haligtree. Oh god, you aggroed on me, homie. Come on. I was gonna be the one to throw out the first attack, but, you know, he came at me first, so. Come on. Okay. Hold up, I haven't played Elden Ring in a while. There we go. Oh boy. Wait, I got it. Dude, I literally have like 0 HP right now. I thought that I died. I legit just like froze up right there because I could have swore that I died. I heard the death sound effect, but no, I won that somehow. I have no idea how, but I'll take it. Bloodborne's messing me up, man. That game taught me to be hyper aggressive to an unhealthy point. I need to chill out a little bit. Ow. So let's go through some pros and cons, I guess, of Elden Ring. We'll start out with the pros. So obviously I already touched on it, but the open world is absolutely fantastic, and there is little to no wasted space throughout the game. Second pro, build variety. In terms of weapons, builds, combination builds, Elden Ring has hands down done it the best out of any From Software game up to this point. You know, in previous From Software games, there was ways to combine builds and kind of do like hybrid builds sometimes, but Elden Ring took it to a whole nother level. I mean, you guys see my build right here. It's a hybrid of both faith and strength. I've never done that in any other Souls game. In the other Souls games, it was basically just always strength. Big sword, unga boonga, hit the boss, dead. But in this game, there's a lot more to it, because not only am I a strength build, but my strength build primarily revolves around Lion's Claw, considering the fact that it gives you the hyper armor every time that you execute the move. It allows me to take a few extra hits without being punished too much. Furthermore, the faith aspect comes in with Flame Grimmer Shank and Golden Vow. I pop those before every single boss encounter since they stack, and this strength build is just absolutely unstoppable. It's a strength and faith hybrid that revolves around an Ash of War. Like, that in itself is a pretty sick build. Because furthermore, not only do like the strength and faith elements play a lot into it, but also my talismans revolve around it. Like Shard of Alexander, it boosts my Lion's Claw damage. My Carrion Filigree Crest makes it so that I'm able to do the move more before I have to replenish my mind bar. Erdtree's Favor +2 is just there so that I can get away with using like big Oonga Boonga equipment without being punished with a heavy roll. And plus extra stamina and HP is just always welcome. And then the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman just makes it so that I take less damage overall. So yeah, when it comes to like builds and build variety and stuff, like Elden Ring definitely takes the cake on that. Now the next thing I want to touch on, and this is perfect timing, it's the bosses of Elden Ring. This is a touchy subject. So when it comes to unique and original bosses in the game, they're all absolutely fantastic. However, there is one issue with the bosses in this game, and you know, you guys have heard me talk about this many times at this point, and that is the sheer amount of recycled bosses in this game. The boss that we're fighting right now, he gets recycled like 2 other times throughout the game. You fight him here, and then you fight him later, but his name is then Morgott, and then you also fight him at the beginning of Altus Plateau. He's like an optional, I guess he's not really a boss at that point, but it's just more like an enemy that you can find out in the open world. And I've heard the same arguments spewed by so many different people, so many different times, but Morgott is a different boss. He has different moves. It's basically an entirely different fight, and to that I say, no, it is not. It is the same model, just copied and pasted, and yes, I know it fits in with the lore, but my point is, this isn't the only example of it, because every time people make that argument, it only applies to, like, Morgott and, you know, a few other bosses throughout the game, like something like Mohg the Omen, and then Mohg Lord of Blood. Like, obviously in the lore, it fits in with the whole twin thing dynamic in the Elden Ring lore. I don't even fully understand it, honestly. And you know what? GG's to From Software for making it fit in with the lore, even if they did have to recycle some material. But my point with that has always been, imagine if you're playing like, oh, I don't know, Dark Souls 1, and for some reason Nito was at the beginning of the game. Let's say that you get into Undead Burg and then you had to fight Nito at the entrance. You'd be like, hey, that was a cool boss, he had a cool design, decent moveset, awesome. And then after that, you just remember the boss for what it is and move on. But then imagine you get later in the game and say at the bottom of Blighttown for some reason, instead of Chaos Witch K-Lag, you end up coming across Nito again. Except this time, instead of his usual moveset, now for some reason he has a Nerf gun on his hip that is able to pull out and shoot you in the face with for some reason. But otherwise, his moveset is relatively the same, and visually there's no difference to it. At that point, you'd probably still at least like the boss a little bit, be like, hey, you know, it's kind of weird that he was copied and pasted to this point, and the only change made to him was that now he can shoot me in the face with a Nerf gun. And at that point, you'd probably still be like, hey, you know what, that was a decent boss, that was a fun fight. And then boom, out of nowhere, you get to Lost Izalith, and instead of all the copy and pasted Taurus demons down there, instead you're fighting a bunch of copy and pasted Nitos. At that point, the specialty of that boss and how unique it is and how much it stands out in your mind is it's just gonna go down and down and down, instead of it being like that one really cool, unique encounter, that one fight that everybody clamors and talks about. Now it's just like, yeah, that was that one boss. I was just kind of copied and pasted throughout the entire game, and that's just kind of how it is for me. Personally, I would have rather fought any other boss besides Margit again at the top of Landel. It literally could have been any other enemy in the game. Could have been one of the other Remembrance bosses. It's something unique. That's my point. I miss when every encounter felt unique and special, and not just any enemy was able to have a giant health bar with a name slapped onto them. Like, they had to be something special. They had to earn that giant health bar. They had to earn that special name. You know what I mean? Because, like, Because like I said, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the bosses in this game, I love the different fights and encounters in this game, I wish that there wasn't so much recycled material. Because while yes, the whole Margit slash Morgoth slash the Margit at the beginning of Altus Plateau is one of my bigger gripes with the game, considering that you see the same boss twice essentially within the main path of the game. This goes way beyond that. Crucible Knights, anybody? I don't even know how many Crucible Knights are in the game. I think it's like 8 or 9 of them, but that is just insane. And then don't even get me started on the other recycled bosses that basically never have any changes made to them, like the tree spirit things, and then you got the watchdog cat statue things. And then right here we fight Godric the Grafted, but then later on we find like Godfrey the Grafted, I think the name is, in one of the Everjails. I mean, obviously it's off the main path of the game, but it's still just like, oh, okay, it's just another recycled boss with a different name. Oh, and don't even get me started on the completely random and out of place Godfrey Shade, the Golden Shade version of him. Could you imagine if you wouldn't have seen Godfrey until the end of the game right before Radagon and Elden Beast? That fight, oh my gosh, it would have felt so special and unique, but considering the fact that it was recycled in the game not more than like, I don't know, a few hours before that in total playtime, it automatically takes out some of the uniqueness from the boss, because it's like, well, I fought a variation of this boss before. The recycling problem doesn't ever necessarily take away from the individual encounters themselves. The individual encounters themselves are so absolutely phenomenal. Like, as much as I complain about the Margit Morgoth recycling thing, both of those fights in their own merits are some of the best boss fights from Software, period. Same goes for the Godfrey Shade and the actual Godfrey fight. Like, those fights are phenomenal. I just feel like there's a few too many times with the bosses in this game where I felt like they were going for the quantity over quality approach, because honestly, I would have rather the game had a quarter of the bosses that it did if it meant that less of them would have gotten recycled in some way or another, because at this point, there's so many bosses in the game that it honestly takes away from the feeling that you used to get from fighting From Software bosses. Every time you saw a From Software boss, you saw the health bar pop up, you saw the cutscene start, you heard the music start swelling, like, it was such a unique feeling. But now in this game, you just really don't get that feeling, because if you fight every single boss in the game, you are going to see that giant health bar pop up like 100 times, and that's not even an exaggeration. I'm pretty sure there's somewhere between like 80 and 100 bosses in the game. Whereas in like any other Souls game, like I believe the game that had the most bosses before this would have been Dark Souls 2 at just 31 bosses, including the DLC, I believe. So the TLDR version of that little tangent is, I hope that for the next Elden Ring type game that From Software makes, they can go the quality over quantity approach and make more unique bosses. If they have to recycle a few bosses, whatever, but like 9 Crucible Knights, 3 different encounters with Margit, 2 mandatory fights with Godfrey in the main path in the game, like that really started to take away from the experience towards the end of the game. But for as many complaints as I have with the recycled bosses, there are actually more praises that I have for the bosses in the game in general. Like, don't even get me started. Rennala, I absolutely love that boss. The aesthetics of the boss are amazing, and it's like, it's one of the few times that they did a mage boss well in a From Software game. The only other memorable mage fight that I can remember before Rennala would have been Soul of Cinder, but obviously that wasn't even like strictly a mage fight, that was more a hybrid fight. Rykard, hands down the best gimmick boss in any From Software game, at least in my opinion. I absolutely love that fight, even if it is just a gimmick, because it's not like the other gimmick fights, like say Yorm the Giant, where it's just a mindlessly easy breeze, you click the triggers a few times and boom, the fight's over. Like, no, you still need to have some skill to get that fight done, and while it isn't, you know, the hardest fight in the game, there's still some challenge and timing required to it. The only other complaint that I have for bosses, you know, I've talked about this a lot before, so I'm not going to go down the usual tangent path that I do when it comes to talking about this, because you guys have heard me talk about it many times, but I just hate the over-reliance of gimmicks with bosses in this game. Millennia isn't a hard boss. The only part that makes her hard is Waterfowl. Moog isn't even a hard boss either. The only part that makes him annoying and harder anyway is the ceiling stab move that you either have to have an arbitrary item in your physical flask to drink to avoid taking damage from it, or you sit there spamming square to heal through it. Fire Giant with the artificially inflated health pool. I've said this once and I'll say it again. The best From Software fights do not come down to one move that makes it hard or one little gimmick that makes it hard. In any other From Software game, it has always come down to an overall masterful design of the boss and fight that felt very intentional and thought out and designed on like such a deep, uncomprehendable level. Whereas in this game, I feel like the quantity over quality approach to the bosses started to bleed into the quality of some of the even more quote-unquote quality bosses in the game. I know I just said quality like 5 times right there, but please bear with me. Like, again, going back to Millennia, the only thing making her fight hard at all really is just the waterfowl dance, whereas think back to one of the better fights from like a previous From Software game, like something like Nameless King, where the entire fight itself is just like, it's challenging overall. It's not just one move that makes him hard. Does that make sense? Hot takes and all that aside, I can do nothing but praise this game for what it accomplished. And while yes, I do have a few minor complaints and gripes with the game, that doesn't detract at all from the fact that it is an absolute masterpiece. The open world, most of its bosses, the combat, build variety is just through and through, this is a game that will never be forgotten. I just want to say this one last time, despite the nitpicks and gripes that I have with the game, just remember, I absolutely love this game. I adore this game. I'm that critique type of guy, okay? If there's something that could use a bit of constructive criticism, I will always give it, because constructive criticism can only lead to things getting better in the future. If you disagree, that's completely okay. This is just my opinion. My opinion is valid, just as your opinion is valid, whether you disagree or agree. Yeah, Elden Ring 1 year later. Does it hold up? Definitely. Now I want to hear from you guys. What are your guys' thoughts on the game 1 year later? Have you been playing it since launch, or are you like me and did you dive in a little bit later? Whatever your thoughts are, I definitely love to hear from you guys. But anyway, as always, a shout out to the patrons and channel members: Karma's Fave, Grandma, Little Bitty Tab, Big Daddy Matty, Chalupasaurus Rex, Razak, Polar, Ray, De Webster, Lamas, Press Purgatory, Drip Cassant, Mellow Laskin, Computer Magic, Mason Irving, Teacher Y15, Flim 71, Aaron Reynolds, and Unknown. Thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful. I love you all. And remember, don't go hollow. Peace.